Welcome back to A Hill with a View. My name is Moshe Hill. It is great to be back here. Please make sure to like and subscribe and share because we are sharing very important information you're not going to get anywhere else unless you do your own research, which very few people like to do. And I understand it. I love to listen to popular podcasts, and I get it. And it's hard to do your own research on these things. So what we're going to do is we're going to share the important research that I'm doing to make sure that you are fully informed on what is going on in New York State. So that's what we're doing today. We had a big day today in New York State because Kathy Hochul came out with her budget framework. She oversold it immediately in her press release and statement to the media by claiming that she had a deal going. It is absolutely insane. It is absolutely a crap show what's going on in Albany right now because the Democrats have full control over New York State and have had full control over New York State since 2018. So we're pushing a decade of Democrats having one-party control of New York State. They cannot get it together. They cannot make a successful budget that's not going to bankrupt this state because that's what they're doing. They are bankrupting this state, and they're taking us all down with them. They really are. People are fleeing this state by the droves. People are running away to Florida, to North Carolina, to Texas, anywhere they can get away from Kathy Hochul's massive tax hikes, okay? This is why we had to vote for Bruce Blakeman, okay? We had to break up. This year is the year we are going to break up the monopoly that Democrats have over New York State. That's what we're going to do. So the Democrats don't have like a slim majority in the Assembly and the State Senate, okay? So when they are complaining, when people say, why can't the Republicans hold all three levers of power in the federal government? They hold the House, they hold the Senate, they hold the presidency, and they had a lot of trouble getting through budgets, right? Getting through passing continuing resolutions, passing spending bills. They're getting shut down. They had government shutdowns. And I'll tell you why. Because a very, very thin majority is still a majority, but you have one or two people can really derail your entire budget process. So you're on, with a Thomas Massey, or last year you had a Marjorie Taylor Greene or whatever. You have a 2-seat majority, and you have a couple people who are just derailing your entire process. Then that's it. You're done. Same thing in the Senate. They had a 3-seat majority. You got, you have Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Mitch McConnell. They were against a lot of different things. So they're done. And it's very difficult to bring together a coalition. I think actually John Thune and Mike Johnson are doing a pretty good job bringing together the coalition. Not so true in New York State. They do not have a slim majority. The Democrats do not have a slim majority in New York State. Let me lay this out for you. New York State Assembly, 150 seats. Democrats, 103. 103. That's 75%. They have a super majority. Carl Heastie cannot get it together to negotiate with his counterpart in the state Senate, with the governor. They cannot get it together. They cannot get a budget together between the three of them. Same thing. States Senate, 63 seats. Democrats, 41. Republicans, 22. Super majorities in both. They cannot get it together. This budget is way overdue. So from the New York Times put this out a few hours ago. Governor Kathy Hochul announces a handshake budget deal with state lawmakers that also seek to push back on federal immigration enforcement in the state. By the way, you would think a budget deal has to do with spending money in the state. It doesn't. They push through a lot of their laws, a lot of their crazy stuff. I think the ban on gas stoves happened in the budget deal. Like, all this stuff gets pushed in the budget deal. They just throw it all in there. It's a $268 billion budget deal. $268 billion. And yes, that is a significant increase from where it has been previously. Okay, so let's take a look at this data from the New York budget data.datamade.us. Okay, let's take a look at this. This is the budget, how much it's increased over the past 30 years. All right, we're not going to go back that long because obviously, the money with inflation, I can even adjust for inflation on this one. Okay, so adjusting for inflation. 30 years ago, adjusting for inflation, we were spending half of what we're spending now. When Kathy Hochul came into office in 2021, after she came in because of Cuomo resigning, it was $232 billion adjusted for inflation. So not adjusted for inflation, it was $209 billion. So they adjusted it a lot. And then, so I'm still adjusting for inflation. Kathy Hochul's first full year, so she got elected in 2022. First full year as the governor, 23 was $241 billion, going up 248, 258, 268. So she is steadily going on the increase. All right, that's even adjusted for inflation. But what are we spending this money on? We are estimated spending, 43% of our budget is going to health. $114 billion. $114 billion is going to health. That's the estimated spending. Now, we were told back in 2010 that Obamacare was going to fix the healthcare costs. It didn't. It didn't do anything to fix it. In fact, it skyrocketed the healthcare costs. Healthcare costs are jumping up like crazy since 2010. Pretty stagnant, slightly. And then all of a sudden, whoop, the curve goes a lot higher, a lot faster. So in 2010, we were spending $42 billion for healthcare costs. Now it's $114 billion. All right, almost tripling of the healthcare costs. And what are we spending that money on? Is that all going to legitimate healthcare sources? Well, we just found out in Ohio that the healthcare fraud is absolutely insane. It's rampant in Ohio. That's a red state. That's keeping their eye on these things. And the Daily Wire reported that it was rampantly going on, that there were people who were being paid by the government to go visit their own parents, that they were just filling out all this paperwork and getting paid by the government to basically do regular things that kids do for their parents. Go to their parents' house and read to them, something like that. And they're getting paid by the government. There was buildings with dozens and dozens of businesses, just straight Medicare fraud, Medicaid fraud, Medicare fraud. And don't tell me that that's not happening in New York State. That is happening in New York State. I know it's happening in New York State. We just need to actually investigate it. And if somebody actually investigated this stuff, then we would find it rampant in New York State. So continuing on with the New York Times, or really just starting, New York State leaders have agreed to the framework of a $268 billion budget. I cannot believe that number. That will include funding to expand childcare and a new tax on multi-million-dollar second homes in New York City, Governor Kathy Hochul announced on Thursday. The spending plan will also include a raft of measures intended to push back against Trump administration's immigration crackdown. Yes, that's what we need to do. We need to stop the immigration crackdown by the Trump administration. Why? I don't know. Why do we need to stop it? I have no idea. Including one barring Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent from wearing masks. The state can't do that. That is completely unconstitutional. A state cannot tell federal agents what they can or cannot do. It's just that it's already been tried in court. Like that's blatantly unconstitutional. Other major policy initiatives shoehorned into the budget, which is now more than 5 weeks overdue. 5 weeks overdue. Include a delay in the state's climate deadlines and a cap on auto insurance payouts. So they had all these things. They thought they were going to go carbon neutral or zero or whatever, net zero by 2030 or 2035. They can't do it. They cannot do it. They cannot accomplish this because it was always pie in the sky. It never made any sense. When they announced it, it never made any sense then. They can't just flip a switch and completely change our infrastructure, electrical grid, and how we get energy in this state. They can't do it in the state. They can't do it in the country. Every other state that's been attempted has had rolling brownouts, blackouts, literally massive problems with its energy grid. We're talking about California, which has been going on. We're talking about Texas. This has been happening in Texas. So anytime that there's some kind of weather event that they're preparing for, everything shuts down. And they're trying to completely destroy our oceans by putting all these wind farms. They're trying to destroy the Bay. They're trying to destroy the Long Island Sound. They're trying to destroy the Atlantic Ocean. They're going to destroy the marine wildlife out there. They're doing all of this. They're trying to do all of it. They can't do it. And they realize they can't do it. So, and cap on auto insurance payouts. All right. Like, who's that helping? The negotiations were not easy, Ms. Hochul said on Thursday. There were very substantial disagreements, tough choices, and powerful special interests trying to influence the outcome. You know, the Democrats these days, they're all socialists, right? Even the ones that are supposed to be moderate are all leaning into the socialists, progressive, the Democratic socialists, because that's where they think they're going to win. They think they're going to win on the Democratic socialist side. And so they're all very happy to say, we have no corporate donors, we don't fall to special interests, we don't do this, we don't do that. And they clearly do. Because once again, the Republicans were not involved in this negotiation, at least not meaningfully. Yes, obviously many Republicans have good relationships with their Democrat counterparts, but if they wanted to, if the Democrats wanted to, and they very much do want to, they could lock the Republicans out of any negotiations. They have nothing at all to say. But so powerful special interest groups, they're just telling on themselves. They're telling on their own Democrats. But legislative leaders cautioned that many issues, including the size of the final budget, still need to be worked out. Speaking shortly after Ms. Hochul, the Assembly Speaker, Carl Heastie, said it had been very premature of the governor to announce a deal when he had only agreed only that she could say they were close to an agreement on major policy items.
What's wrong with this process? It's like, I'm going to only talk about policy, and then when I think the legislature is giving me what I want on policy, then we'll talk about money. There's so many open issues on money where, on all parts of the budget, the governor's team, the Senate team, the Assembly's team sign off. We've signed off on nothing major. And this is what I'm telling y'all is wrong with this process. And I'm saying this to y'all very clearly. I'm never doing this again. Budgets are supposed to be about money, not policy. So what's wrong with this process? It's like,
it's absolutely insane. I mean, so even Carl Heastie, he understands that it's not supposed to be about just shoving in your policies into the budget. And so she was just pantsed in front of the entire media, anyone who's paying attention. She just got pantsed by her own Democrat Assembly Speaker, who immediately tells the reporters that they do not have a deal, that there is no budget deal, he said, adding that he did not care if the budget doesn't get passed for 6 months. Mike Murphy, a spokesman for the Senate Democrat majority, said that leaders had agreed to big concepts, but that no overall deal has been reached. Ms. Hochul acknowledged, this is still from the New York Times, acknowledged that many things that needed to be resolved by the state and assembly could begin voting on the budget bill. At the top of the to-do list is ironing out how the new tax on the multi-million-dollar second homes in New York City will work. So just a second on those second homes. I just want to play one clip from Ed Ra, who is my assemblyman down where I live in Nassau County, and he is also the minority leader in the assembly, and listen to what he has to say.
The fact that done. There's no bills, so you've got nothing done other than talk. The fact that we're spending that kind of money in our budget, and you have a governor who thinks the move is to just go out and say, hey, we have a deal, when you have legislative leaders saying, no, that's not the case. I just think we've gone so far away from having responsible leadership of this state and caring about what it means to pass a budget on time. It's May 7th, and she's out here announcing a deal that doesn't actually exist. And I'm sure, I don't know what's next. Last year she did that and started gallivanting around the state saying, look what I did and look what I accomplished. And that is how this state has been run for the last, certainly 5 years under this governor, but the last 8 years under single party rule, is a lot of talk, A lot of talk about affordability, but New Yorkers aren't seeing it.
I mean, Ed Ra, my assemblyman, telling it how it is, Assembly Minority Leader, telling it how it is, we are not seeing any form of affordability or accountability. I mean, I remember I actually lobbied in Albany years ago. I was lobbying on behalf of some education spending for non-public schools, and I went up there, and they had us go up there in mid-March because they said they have a hard deadline, March 31st. That's when it's over. We cannot go past that. March 31st, that's when the deadline is for the budget, so we got to get up there early March. It is May 7th. This thing is 5 weeks overdue. They cannot pass a bill. Bruce Blakeman for governor, he had a statement today. Hochul has raised taxes by $8 billion since taking office. She increased spending by $61 billion. She spent $4.5 billion on migrants. She gave $1 billion in tax breaks to Hollywood. She hiked your utility rates 36 times. And every time she needs more money, she reaches into your paycheck. Say it, Bruce. New York already pays the highest individual tax burden in the entire country. And if you watch this show, you know that's right. We're ranked dead last of all the states. 50 states, we're dead last. We rank dead last in competitiveness. And Hochul's answer is always the same: make New Yorkers pay more. I did the opposite in Nassau County. Yeah, you did. I cut $150 million in taxes. I would never raise the sales tax by a single penny. I balanced the budget and made Nassau County the safest county in America. This is what real leadership looks like. That is true. Bruce Blakeman for governor. You got to vote for Bruce Blakeman. It is absolutely insane. By the way, we're in the 4th year of Bruce Blakeman in office. Guess what hasn't been raised? Our county taxes. He has not raised it in the biggest inflation cycle in 50 years. He did not do a tax raise. That's insane. But Bruce Blakeman can do it. And that's why we need him for governor. We need him to do for New York what he did for Nassau County. We need him to bring some financial and fiscal responsibility to this county. It's absolutely insane. So, but Hochul, new taxes. So what's the other taxes we get from Hochul? For years, so back to the New York Times on this one, the new tax on multi-million-dollar second homes in New York City. That wasn't supposed to happen. At the top of the two list is multi-million-dollar second homes in New York City. For years, efforts by the Senate and Assembly to raise taxes on the wealthy have been stonewalled by Ms. Hochul, who has expressed concerns that higher taxes would prompt some businesses and wealthy residents to flee the state. But amid the economic populism generated by Zohran Mamdani's mayoral victory last year and the expectation of more cuts to federal funding, Ms. Hochul's political calculus shifted. Oh, that's a very nice way that the New York Times put that. Basically, Hochul is reading the polls and seeing that Mamdaniism is doing pretty well for the Democrats, and so she's going along with the socialists. That's what she's doing. No principle, no nothing. She's going along. Now, she's smart enough to say, well, we're not going to raise tax. We're just going to raise taxes on second homes. That's what we're doing. So with the proposed tax on second homes, Ms. Hochul sought to target the city's richest property owners whose primary residences are outside New York City. The governor still has not released details of the new tax, including how many second homes will be subject to it, and what the new rates will be. The goal is to raise $500 million in New York City, $500 million each year, which will go towards closing the city's estimated $5.4 billion budget deficit. So don't cut spending. Don't rein in the spending, the massive spending that they have in New York State or New York City. Just tax more, tax. And guess what happened? The guy who Mamdani bullied, the guy who he put on his video, said recently to CNBC, guess what I did? I called Miami and I said, hey, I need more space down there. I need more space for my offices in Miami. We're increasing our footprint there because we got to get out of New York. So you're talking about jobs, you're talking about investment, you're talking about money, leaving New York because of these people. I'll have more to say on that soon, she said. The tax on so-called pied-à-terre comes as Democrats across the country are increasingly looking to increase taxes on the wealthy as a means of addressing voters' affordability concerns ahead of the midterm election. You know how dumb this is? Do you know how dumb it is to think that you're taking money from wealthy people will make your life better? Do you think, like, that means you trust the Democrats to physically give you money or to lower your costs in some way, as opposed to giving it to another nonprofit, which is going to waste its money on creating another multi-million-dollar report while paying off their cronies and their people, which then go back into the pockets of the Democrats who are running for office. It's a massive scam. It's all just a massive scam. It's absolutely insane that people still fall for this. But the new tax revenue, combined with $1.5 billion in additional state aid for the city and proposed delays in certain pension payments, will not completely alleviate the city's budget woes. Ms. Hochul has been adamant that Mr. Mamdani and other city officials find more budget cuts. Guess what? They had to delay by 10 days. They had to delay it. So their budget's due in 5 more days on the 12th. The budget also includes a $4.5 billion to expand child care offerings across the state. So more money for pre-K. Oh my God. The funding helps Mr. Mamdani move forward to fulfilling his campaign promise, of course, because we got to help Mamdani, to make pre-kindergarten and 3 to K universal in New York City and allow a handful of pilot programs for 2-year-olds to get underway. Cradle to grave. Cradle to grave. The investments were a cornerstone of the unlikely political alliance between the moderate, that's the New York Times talking, Hochul's not moderate, and the progressive Mr. Mamdani. Between the radical Ms. Hochul and the insane Mr. Mamdani is my little editorial right there. We've been asked to do a lot for the city, the governor said on Thursday. We have given unprecedented amounts of support. That says it all. Doesn't that say it all? We have given unprecedented amounts of support. So basically, if you want this state to be run essentially by Mamdani, then you got to vote for Kathy Hochul. And you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of when Joe Biden ran in 2020 and Bernie Sanders was winning, and the Democrats realized that they would not beat Trump in a general election if Bernie Sanders was the candidate. And so they rigged it, and they got everyone to drop out and endorse Joe Biden before South Carolina. And then Joe Biden walked into the presidency. What did Joe Biden do after he beat Bernie Sanders? He brought Bernie Sanders in. Bernie Sanders had a binder of all his policy proposals in 2020. And Joe Biden says, you got it. Bernie Sanders' policies were what Joe Biden was using. It was Bernie Sanders' policies. That's what he was using for his 4 years in office. And what happened? Open borders, skyrocketing prices, massive, gas shortages, huge oil spikes, huge inflation, 50-year highs in inflation. Absolutely insane. Still recovering. We're still recovering from this, from Joe Biden. And this is exactly what's going on in New York State. So Mamdani is the path that Hochul is going down. It's absolutely insane. So skipping ahead, they're trying to copy Trump's tax on tips, no tax on tips. They're trying to copy that because they realize that it's pretty popular with people who work for tips. One of the most controversial elements of the budget was Ms. Hochul's push to weaken the legislature's signature 2019 Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. She argued that instituting the law's ambitious regulations would send bills even higher. So we already had 36 increases in our utility bills in New York State in the last 4 years. And even Hochul is smart enough to realize that in an election year, she cannot skyrocket them even higher. Under Ms. Hochul, the state has struggled to meet its climate goals. Renewable projects have faltered under a combination of economic and political headwinds out of Washington. Okay. BS. At the same time, the closure of the Indian Point nuclear power plant under foreign... I have to finish the rest of this. I can't with the rest of this paragraph. At the same time, the closure of the Indian Point nuclear plant under former Governor Andrew Cuomo has led the state to consume more fossil fuels than it would have otherwise. Closing nuclear plants is, if you want to use less fossil fuels, stop closing the nuclear plants. I mean, yes, Indian Point was very old, and but they got to build new ones. I mean, they got to do it. They haven't built a new nuclear plant in this country since the 90s, I think, and maybe early 2000s. They have to build new nuclear plants. If you are interested at all in fossil emissions, in carbon emissions, if you're not, then don't be interested in it. But if you are interested in carbon emissions, then you should push for nuclear, because that's the only thing that would work. New York planned to reach those goals through a program called Cap and Invest, which would raise money for renewable and efficiency projects by charging polluters. But the Hochul administration has been slow to issue regulations, which are now more than 2 years late. They have one-party control, and they can't do it because even they realize that what their radicals push is insane. They realize it, and they still push it. So they're just lying to you to win. So they say one thing during an election season, and then when it comes to actually implement it, they gauge the waters. Can we really do this? Can they really do this? Now, I don't want them to do it, but I also want people who don't want to do it because it doesn't make any sense. Not people who are just trying to cave to a base, and they're just going to cave and cave and cave and cave. It is absolutely insane. And the environmentalists are protesting Hochul. The environmentalists are going to stay home this year. They're not going to vote for Hochul. They're going to stay home. Absolutely insane. There's a lot of other proposals that she put into this bill. It's all coming out. Anti-ICE, anti-Uber, anti anything that makes people's lives easier and better. I mean, Hochul absolutely has no idea what she's doing. The Democrats, I mean, we're going to have, next year, God willing, we're going to have Bruce Blakeman on as governor. And he's going to have a massive fight, a budget fight in his hand, because he will still have Democrats in the House, in this Assembly, and the Senate. The numbers are way too big to overcome. And, by the way, the Democrats gerrymandered the districts to the point where it's not possible. So the Republicans had a Senate majority until 2018. The redistricting happened in 2022. And everyone talked about the redistricting in the Congress, in the House of Representatives, how it was absolutely insane. They were the most insane lines, to the point where a Democrat judge threw it out, and then they redistricted to make them more normal. And then in 2024, Democrats redistricted again, and were able to get more Democrats into Congress. So if anyone says that this whole redistricting thing started in 2025 with Texas, no, it started in 2024 with the Democrats in New York. But at the same time, in 2022, they passed new lines for the state Senate. And I'll tell you, those were just as insane for the state Senate. They really got rid of every single Republican district they could. That also got sued. That also got overturned in court. So they had to make them somewhat normal. But the state Senate lines in 22, I remember the Jewish community in the 5 towns, which votes heavy Republican, was moved into big parts of Queens, so they can completely drown out the Jewish community. So anyone says that what they're doing with the Supreme Court now, what happened is racist, whatever. I mean, Democrats do this all the time. It's political. If a certain group votes, if they see a certain group voting heavily for the party, for your opposition, they're going to split it up. They're going to split it up as much as they can. That's what partisan gerrymandering is. That's what it is. And so that's what the Republicans did That's what the Democrats did in New York State. So they're going to keep the state Senate, most likely. I hope we get a couple more state senators. I hope my guy, Matt Capp, I hope he wins. We're going to campaign hard for him. He's going to be my state senator. But turning over the state Senate, nearly impossible. Turning over the Assembly, actually impossible. So we got to have Bruce Blakeman in there so we can at least have the fight. We got to at least have the fight for some normalcy. So that's going to be it for me. We really got to do something about this stuff this year because this budget is absolutely insane. It's only going to get worse. We are going to have to fight every single day from now until November to get Bruce Blakeman into office. All right. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and share. My name is Moshe Hill. This has been A Hill with a View. Thank you very much. See you next week.